Welcome, everyone. One of the best ways to prepare for the IELTS speaking test is to see it in action. That's exactly what we're doing today with this complete mock test from Spinta. As you listen, think about what the candidate does well and where they could improve. Afterwards, we'll compare notes with a full performance breakdown. Let's begin.
Good morning. My name is Mr. Clark. Can you tell me your full name, please?
Good morning. My name is Emily Chen. You can call me Emily. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Where are you from, Emily?
I am from a mid-sized city in southern China called Xiamen. It is a coastal place with warm weather most of the year and many parks. I moved to the capital for university, but my family still live there, and I go back to visit during holidays.
Right. Let's talk about home and family. Do you live with your family now?
No, I don't live with my family at the moment. I live in a flat near my university, because I work part-time there and it's convenient. My parents and younger sister still live in Xiamen, and we talk often, usually by video calls on weekends when we have time.
How often do you see them?
I try to visit at least 3 times a year. Maybe more if there is a festival or family event. Travel is easier now than it used to be, so sometimes I pop back for a long weekend. When I am back, I enjoy cooking with my mother and walking on the seaside promenade with my sister.
What do you enjoy most about your family?
What I appreciate most is the support and the sense of continuity. My family encourages me to take opportunities, and they are quite practical too, giving advice about finances and career. Also, we have similar sense of humor, which makes being together relaxed and fun, rather than stressful.
Now about your studies or work. Are you working or studying at the moment?
I am currently finishing a master's degree in environmental engineering, and I also work part-time as a research assistant in a lab. The combination keeps me busy, but I find it rewarding because my studies and the job complement each other.
Why did you choose that field?
I chose environmental engineering because I have always been concerned about sustainability and practical solutions. Growing up in a coastal city, I saw erosion and waste management problems, and I wanted to be part of the solution, combining technical design with policy awareness. It seemed like a good way to make a positive impact.
How long have you been studying this subject?
I have been studying environmental engineering since my undergraduate degree, so altogether about 6 years. During that time, I did internships with 2 NGOs and a municipal water authority, which gave me real-world experience that I would not have gained only in lectures.
Let us move on to hobbies. What do you do in your free time?
In my free time, I like to read, run, and cook. I read widely. Not only professional articles but also novels and biographies. Running helps me clear my head, and I often run in the park early in the morning. Cooking is a creative outlet. I experiment with recipes from different cuisines, and sometimes share the results with friends.
Why do you enjoy running?
Running gives me both physical energy and mental clarity. It is almost meditative when I find a steady rhythm, and I can think through problems or plan my week. Also, it is social sometimes when I join a running group and we push each other to train for local races.
Do you prefer indoor or outdoor activities?
Generally, I prefer outdoor activities because I like fresh air and natural surroundings. Outside there is more variety and scenery and it helps me disconnect from screens. But indoor activities like reading or cooking are important too, because they are relaxing in different ways.
Tell me about your daily routine on a typical weekday.
On a typical weekday, I wake up at 6, do a short run or stretching, then prepare breakfast and check emails. I attend lectures or work in the lab during the day, with a lunch break where I try to eat something balanced. Evenings are for studying, cooking dinner, and sometimes meeting friends. I aim to be in bed by 11 to have enough rest for the next day.
Has your routine changed recently?
Yes, since starting my part-time role, my routine became more structured and busier. I used to have more flexible afternoons for reading, but now I allocate specific time slots for research, experiments, and writing, which actually makes me more productive. I am learning to balance social life with deadlines.
Finally, in part 1, what are your plans for the near future?
In the near future, I plan to finish my thesis, publish at least one paper, and then look for a full-time role in sustainable infrastructure. I would like to work on projects that improve urban resilience. Personally, I also want to travel more to see different approaches to environmental management in other countries.
Why is travel important to you?
Travel broadens my perspective and allows me to see how theories are applied in different cultural and climatic contexts. Observing real projects helps me understand practical constraints and innovative solutions that I can then adapt or suggest in my own work.
Okay. Now, part 2. I'm going to give you a topic, and I'd like you to talk about it for 2 to 3 minutes. Here is your topic. Describe a useful piece of advice you received. You should say what the advice was, who gave it, when you received it, and explain why it was useful to you. You have 1 minute to prepare. Please start when you are ready.
One piece of advice that really stuck with me came from a professor during my undergraduate final year. She said, just focus on making the next small decision well, rather than worrying about the whole career path. She gave this advice when I was anxious about choosing between further study and a job offer. At the time, I was paralyzed by possibilities and kept comparing options until it felt overwhelming. The professor asked me what I could do that week to move forward, and suggested drafting a one-page plan with immediate steps rather than long-term hypotheticals. That small change of focus helped me a lot, because it turned anxiety into action. I remember I sat down that afternoon and wrote 3 short tasks: contact the potential employer for more details, apply for a scholarship, and arrange informational interviews with 2 alumni. Completing those tasks gave me momentum and a clearer sense of priorities. Over the next few months, I used the same approach for other decisions, breaking large problems into manageable steps and setting short deadlines. As a result, I accepted a research internship that summer, which later led to a job offer, and informed my decision to pursue a master's degree. The advice was useful not only because it solved a practical dilemma, but also because it changed my decision-making habit. Now, when I face uncertainty, I ask myself what the immediate constructive next step is, and often that alone clarifies direction. So in short, the advice to focus on the next small decision was pivotal, because it replaced indecision with a replicable method for progress.
Who else besides that professor influenced your decisions?
My family influenced me a lot too, especially my mother, who encouraged practical planning and saving. Also, mentors I met during internships gave candid feedback about workplace expectations, which helped me weigh options realistically, rather than idealistically.
How do you apply that advice now?
I apply it by always defining 3 immediate next steps when starting any project, whether it's writing a paper or applying for funding. If I am overwhelmed, I force myself to pick one tiny action I can complete in under an hour. It reduces procrastination and keeps progress visible.
Right, thank you. Now, part 3, we'll talk about advice, decisions, and influence in more general terms. Do people in your country generally accept advice from experts?
Yes, people often value expert advice, especially in technical areas like medicine or engineering. There is high respect for qualifications and credentials. However, acceptance varies with trust. If experts are perceived as disconnected from local realities or motivated by commercial interests, people may be skeptical and prefer community-based knowledge instead.
Why might people trust community knowledge over experts?
Community knowledge is trusted because it is grounded in lived experience and adapted to local conditions. It is often more accessible linguistically and culturally. For example, farmers might rely on traditional cropping practices that are finely tuned to microclimates, while an expert recommendation might be generic and less suitable for that context.
Do you think the internet has changed the way people seek advice?
Absolutely, the internet has democratized access to information so people can find multiple perspectives quickly. That is positive because it empowers users, but it also creates noise and misinformation. The challenge now is not access but evaluation. People need skills to judge the credibility of sources and to synthesize conflicting advice.
How can individuals judge the credibility of online information?
They can check the author's credentials, cross-reference with reputable institutions, look for citations and peer-reviewed sources, and examine whether the information is current. Critical thinking skills taught in education are essential, as is awareness of biases like confirmation bias, which makes people favor information that confirms pre-existing beliefs.
In workplaces, how important is mentorship compared to formal training?
Mentorship and formal training serve different roles, but both are important. Formal training provides structured knowledge and standards, whereas mentorship offers tacit knowledge, contextual judgment, and socialization into workplace norms. In my experience, mentorship accelerates practical learning because mentors model decision-making under real constraints that training sometimes omits.
Can mentorship be formalized?
Yes, mentorship can be formalized through structured programs with clear goals, regular meetings, and assessment. This helps match mentors and mentees and ensures accountability. However, excessive formality can reduce authenticity. Successful programs balance structure with room for informal rapport to develop.
What role do parents play in shaping career decisions nowadays?
Parents still play a significant role, offering practical advice and emotional support, and sometimes financial backing. In many cultures, parents influence choices strongly, but younger generations increasingly seek autonomy and base decisions on personal interests as well as market realities. The dynamic is shifting toward dialogue rather than unilateral decision-making.
Are people more cautious about major decisions than before?
In some respects, yes, partly because information overload makes people aware of many risks and trade-offs. Economic uncertainty also contributes to caution. But paradoxically, some decisions are taken more impulsively today, influenced by social media trends. So it depends on the domain and the individual's values and constraints.
How do cultural values influence whether people take risks?
Cultural values greatly affect risk tolerance. Societies valuing conformity and stability often encourage risk aversion, prioritizing job security and family expectations. Conversely, cultures that prize individual achievement and entrepreneurship may encourage higher tolerance for calculated risks, celebrating stories of those who take chances and succeed.
Do educational systems encourage independent decision-making?
Many modern educational systems are moving toward fostering independent thinking, critical analysis, and problem-solving, but the pace varies. Some systems remain examination-focused and emphasize rote learning, which can limit decision-making skills. Practical, project-based learning helps students learn to make decisions with imperfect information.
If someone gave you bad advice that led to a poor decision, how would you recover?
I would first assess the consequences and take responsibility for the parts one controlled. Then I would gather information to understand what went wrong, seek alternative solutions, and consult trusted mentors. Learning from mistakes and documenting lessons prevents repetition. It's important to act quickly to mitigate damage, but also to reflect so that future decisions improve.
If you would have known about an option earlier, would you change your choices in life?
If I would have known about certain opportunities earlier, perhaps I would have chosen differently, but I believe experiences I had were valuable regardless. Hindsight reveals alternatives but also clarifies why past choices made sense at that time. I prefer to use hindsight to inform future decisions, rather than regret the past.
Do governments have a role in giving public advice?
Yes, governments can provide public guidance on health, safety, and civic matters, where coordinated action is needed. Trust and transparency are essential. When governments explain reasoning and evidence behind advice, public compliance is higher. Governments should also collaborate with community leaders to ensure advice is culturally appropriate and practical.
Finally, what advice would you give to young people making big life decisions?
I would tell them to gather information, talk to people with diverse perspectives, and set small testable steps to explore options, without committing everything at once. Balance ambition with practical planning, and cultivate resilience so that setbacks become learning opportunities rather than reasons to give up.
Okay. That's the end of the speaking test. Thank you, Emily. I see.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to talk about these topics.
The candidate demonstrated a strong Band 8 level performance overall. Specific errors included saying, "If I would have known about an option earlier," when the more accurate form is, "If I had known about an option earlier," and saying, "I am very interested about music" in an earlier part of the test, which should be, "I am very interested in music." There was also a brief slip when the candidate said during an anecdote that she sat down and wrote 3 short tasks, then later said, "I accept a research internship," which would be more naturally phrased, "I accepted a research internship." These errors occurred very occasionally across the test and did not prevent understanding. They were isolated slips in complex or rapid speech rather than systemic grammar failure. Fluency was strong with a smooth, natural flow and only minimal hesitations or self-corrections, such as, which showed effective monitoring and repair. Vocabulary was wide and appropriate, with precise lexical choices like urban resilience, tacit knowledge, and information overload, though there were a couple of minor preposition and tense inaccuracies, as noted above. Grammatically, the candidate used complex structures confidently, and errors were limited to very few conditional and tense forms. Sentence structures were varied and accurate for the most part. This performance aligns with Band 8 because the candidate communicated fluently and coherently, used a broad and sophisticated range of vocabulary, and produced complex grammatical forms with only rare lapses. What prevented a higher score were the occasional slips in complex conditionals and a couple of small lexical or prepositional misuses that slightly reduced grammatical accuracy. To reach Band 9, the candidate would need near-perfect control of complex structures and a completely consistent level of precision in word choice and prepositions under sustained pressure. Strengths included natural discourse management, extended and well-organized responses, effective use of examples and anecdotes, and clear pronunciation and rhythm. Thank you for practicing with this IELTS speaking mock test. Visit Spinta for more comprehensive mock tests and personalized feedback to boost your IELTS score.